What's up, everyone? This is Teresa Jimenez, aka T-zer, reporting again from the podcast Dance and Talks, released from ALiveStory Amsterdam. If you are new to this podcast, we are here interviewing different dancers from all over the world with different dance styles. We're talking with organizers, teachers, school owners, and much more. Today, we're going to interview a female artist within the Kizomba urban kiss scene called Teresa Jimenez.
Hour in which I die. So if I cannot tell you with the words I do not find, I want you to know there are only a few things that I will be carrying in my memory.
So if you don't know who Teresa Jimenez is, she is born and raised in Stockholm, Sweden. She grew up with a Cuban father and a Swedish mother. Growing up, Teresa had a lot of music in her childhood and family because her family is full of musicians. Early on, Teresa learned how to play the violin on a very high level and even got a scholarship to go and play in Russia. But after many years of thinking about what she really wanted to do, she took a step, and as an 18-year-old, she started to do dancing with salsa and bachata, and later on, the Kizomba, as she says, found her. Her first gig in the Kizomba world was competing, and she actually won the Scandinavian Championship. After that, she's been teaching workshops all over the world in both urban kiss and lady styling. During these corona times, she's now running her own concept, Ready, Set, Kiss, where she's teaching online coaching and giving personalized challenges for dancers out there who want to develop their styling. Now, if you are new to this podcast, don't worry. You can find all the episodes at our Facebook page, ALiveStory.official, on our YouTube page with the same name, or as a podcast on Spotify, iTunes, and the other podcast platforms where we are named Dance and Talks. But before we get into this interview, you already know what to do. Follow our pages, like, comment, share, and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss the next upcoming episodes. Now, let's get it going. Welcome to this interview, Teresa Jimenez.
Thank you.
Where are you located right now?
I am in Stockholm, Sweden, Stockholm.
Yeah, and you have your apartment. Do you have your dog there too?
She is here. You remember Chiquita?
Yeah.
I don't know. Let's see if she's gonna come and say hi.
Yeah.
My little viejita, she's old. She's like want to sleep all the time.
But she must be so happy. Finally, mommy is home all the time.
I know.
Instead of traveling.
Here we go. Here she
is.
Hi, world.
How does that work actually when you travel a lot and like have a dog at home?
Yeah, so I have my best friend that loves her. She doesn't like dogs, but she loves Chiquita. So she takes care of her and my apartment as well, because I live in the city. So for her, she loves when I go out of town, because then she can stay in my apartment and be with my dog. So it's convenient in that sense.
It's a good trade-off.
Yeah, and like that way, Chiquita can be at home all the time. Chiquita, the dog. For the people who don't know. And you know, she can be in my apartment, so it works out.
Yeah. Well, you know, like I know a little bit about you, but I definitely don't know everything. So why don't we take it back to the beginning? Where did you grow up and when did your relationship with dance start?
Okay, so I grew up in Stockholm, Sweden. But I grew up in a very unconventional way, in a sense, because I went from the age of 5, I started playing violin, and I went to this Russian private school here in Sweden, which is really random. But my whole family are musicians, except my mother. She's a psychologist, but all of my mother's side and my dad's side, they're all musicians. So it was already decided before my mom even gave birth to me, that I was going to become a musician. So this Russian school came into the picture when they had a really strict and conservative school, like for music, which is a very high level of classical music. So I went there from when I was like 5, 6 years old. I grew up being very curled into violin. Yeah, that was my life. That was all my life was. I got a scholarship later on, if I'm making a long story short, when I grew up as well. So I went to Russia to play violin at the Tchaikovsky Conservatory. And it was around that time when I realized, like, I was a bit older. I was like around 16 or so. And I was like, this isn't my dream. It's everyone else's dream for me, but it's not my dream. And I love music. Like, music is my life. But I always wanted to dance. And I'm half Cuban, so I always had that music around me. And of course, like all of my father, that's from Cuba. He is a musician, and all the other ones in, you know, from my family, from my Cuban side, are musicians. So I always had the influence of salsa music and like son and like these boleros and stuff like that. And I always wanted to dance, but I was never allowed to when I was younger. When I played violin, I was in Russia. I was like, this is not for me. I want to do something else. I want to do music, but I want to dance. So I changed into singing, songwriting during gymnasium, as we call it here in Sweden, which is high school, I guess.
Yeah.
And then as soon as I turned 18, I was like, that's it. I'm dancing. I just went out, and I never stopped. Like, it was just something that came from here, like something I always wanted to do. And yeah, I guess that's the short version of how it just started for me. Of like, it went from just this extreme world to another, which was completely new, but it just felt so natural and like a no-brainer at the time.
And like that must have been, you know, a lot of people start dancing a little bit earlier, but like where do you start? Like, you have this passion, you have this urge to dance. What style was then like your first choice?
That's a very good point. And a lot of people think my approach on it is like, it doesn't really matter when you start. Of course you have an advantage if you start earlier, but it's about how much you do it and how dedicated you are, and like what kind of commitment you make to anything in life. Because especially with dancing, I think, because it really is an art, you know, and it's something you create. So, and in dancing, unless you're talking about ballet and stuff like that, like, it's about your expression and what you can find, whichever style whatever style you choose to dance, like, that's what it's about. So I think it just, for me, it was like, it felt natural to me because I was so passionate about the music of it, because I have had that music with me my whole life. Like, that was something I always just naturally wanted to dance to at home. Every Sunday when we were cleaning the house, you know, we had salsa music playing loudly, you know, and it was just so natural to me. And my stepfather, who's also Cuban, he would also, when I was a kid, he will also like dance with me sometimes in the living room. And I was just like, oh, I want to do this. Like, so for me personally, it was just something I always had it at the back of my head. So when I was free to do it on my own, like to decide my life, when I was 18, I'm like, I'm free. I'm not, and you know, my mom is not in charge of what I can do anymore. It was just a no-brainer. Like I said, it was no other dance and music that I really felt from my heart and something I just wanted to do. So yeah, but I think everyone has that feeling somewhere in their head, like something that just clicks in them and that they want to do.
Like, that's your path kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly.
And so did you then go for salsa because that was like the thing you grew up for? Was that the first style that you were like, I'm gonna learn this properly?
Yes, I mean, I'm old in this game, so when I started, Kizomba didn't even exist, like, outside of Angola, Cape Verde, Portugal, maybe. but like it wasn't a thing in the dancing. There was only salsa, and then even bachata at the time had not been along for that long. Like bachata came like in the salsa world, if I'm not mistaken, I could be wrong about this, but like in the beginning of the 2000s something. So I started dancing 2011, 10, 11. So I hadn't even been that long for the bachata scene at the time. You know, so when I started, yes, it was definitely salsa that I was passionate about. And I was like, but I love dancing. And so I was like, whatever I can do, I love to try new things. So that's also what got me into bachata, and also what eventually led me to Kizomba. And a lot of people ask me and assume like, oh, I'm just this Kizombera. But like, I always say like salsa was my first love, you know, and Kizomba was something, like I would say Kizomba found me. I didn't find Kizomba, because it's sort of true. Like I started with Kizomba 2013, end of 2013, 14, the beginning of 2014. And it was just random. At the time, I actually was more into Brazilian zouk, because I was like, oh, that looks so cool. Like, look, the hair flips and this and that, you know. And I was like, this is going to be the next big thing. And then I remember seeing on YouTube, like this clip that came up as a suggestion with some people dancing Kizomba. And I was like, why are they dancing to zouk music, but they're not, they're just walking. Like, I was like, this is boring. Ooh. And it had so many views, you know. And I was like, this doesn't make any sense. So I was kind of like, I wasn't against Kizomba, but I wasn't convinced. Like, it wasn't something I saw for the first time, and I was like, whoa, what is this? Like, it was kind of like, why is this big? Like, what are people thinking are so cool with this? Because I hadn't tried it, I hadn't danced it. And I remember the first time I danced it, it was with Christopher, that you may know.
Yeah, Christopher Mensuk. Yeah.
Yes, from Sweden. And he was my first dance partner in Kizomba. And he had just been around on a little Kizomba tour that he just set up himself just to learn. Like he was just passionate about learning about this dance. I knew him because he danced Cuban salsa before. So I knew him as this kind of just the guy that was at the parties, you know, like he was also always standing alone and he was dancing with everybody. So I was like, oh, like you went around Europe to like teach yourself Kizomba? He's like, yeah. He's like, let me try with you. And he just danced with me. And I was like, I don't know how to do this. And then he's like, just close your eyes, just follow. And then I just followed. And he was like, you follow so good. Like, do you want to do something? And I'm always, you know, that person to be like, yeah, why not? I don't know what this dance is, but let's get it. So yeah, it was, that's how it went down. The beginning of my Kizomba journey.
Yeah. So like, tell me about that first gig. How did you feel when you like had to teach for the first time?
In Kizomba or?
Yeah.
So I was teaching salsa and bachata before I started Kizomba. So I felt like I was and I've always been passionate about teaching and the pedagogy itself. Like, I think also with my music background, like it meant a lot to me to really break things down and like understand things technically, but also like emotionally and like just like your mental state as your physical state as well and things. And so I was really passionate and it felt natural to me to start teaching. The Kizomba, my first Kizomba gig, it sounds so crazy, but my first Kizomba gig was literally to compete in the championship that was called Africa Dançar at the time.
Wow.
Only the OGs know. But that was basically the Olympiad. What Olympiad is today was what Africa Dançar was then.
That's not typically what you start with. Let me know how that was.
Like I said, it was a total like YOLO thing. And also, obviously, we have to, you know, consider that the scene was a lot smaller than it is today. Like a lot has happened in the last 8 years or 6 years, 6 years ago. So of course the scene was smaller, the competition, like even, you know, the community, you know, as a whole world like over the world was smaller in general. So Olympiad is probably like more, and it was, you know, has had more, you know, Olympiad has more battles and stuff like that in a different way. So it wasn't in the same thing, but it was the same meaning of like, oh, if you won this, you were the shit, basically.
Yeah, but this was showcase competition, right? It wasn't freestyle, or was it
It
also
was
part of it?
both, actually. So you had to, there were like really clear rules. Like it was very clear worldwide what the competition was. And it was Kizomba Nation that organized it, which is like the Angolan prince or something that owns that. It was like a very big deal at the time. So we had, there was like 2 minutes of improvisation, and then there had to be a minute and a half or 2 minutes of choreography as well. So for the first takeout, me and Christopher went to Denmark to compete for the Scandinavian Championship. And so we won that. There were like not many couples, obviously, at the time. Like it was like, I don't know, I think we were like 6 couples or something, but we won anyway. And I was very happy about that. It was my first prize in couple dancing. So it was a big deal to me and us, obviously. And then after we were then qualified, if you won that championship, then you would qualify to go to the World Championship, which was hosted in Milan by Kizomba Nation. And over there was like 36 couples from all over the world. Yeah. And then you had to qualify for the improvisation first. And if you didn't, like, because they filter through like the judges, and then if you didn't get through the first improvisation skills, then you didn't even get to show your choreography. So it was pretty like everyone had their choreographies prepared, but only 15 of us got to show it, I think, out of the 36.
Wow. Wow. Oh my gosh. This reminds me, I also just need to share my first couple dancing competition because my crewmate Michelle from Fuse Fam, he won the Scandinavian bachata championship. So he had to go to the world in England, but his partner didn't want to go. So I was like, I don't want to see him miss out on this opportunity. Now I can't dance bachata, but I surely know how to take choreo. So I'm just going to be like a good friend here.
Yes.
Jump into it. And within 3 months, he had to teach me as much as I could possibly learn.
Yeah, right.
2 choreos, or 1 Dominican bachata, 1 sensual bachata. And I show up on this competition and we're 8 couples. And I am like one head taller than all the other ladies. Like I was their bodyguard, and I'm kind of small, but you know, in their world, I was just, I looked like their bodyguard. That was what it was. You know, it didn't go that well, but I'm very proud of myself. We came 7 out of 8 because the 8 got disqualified. But it's a good memory.
Yes, exactly. And like I always say this in Swedish, you know, like man kan bara bli en erfarenhet rikare. Like you can only become more rich when it comes to experience, because you can never lose. Like and I think that's so important. Like, and that's amazing that you did that, because it's all about like just go for it. Like what do you have to lose? Like worst case, you'll just be like, oh well, like, but I'd rather a well than what if, you know, like.
Right. And after the competition, I went straight to the Kizomba room, you know, I was like, I'm out. And you know, last year when me and Malcolm, my partner, competed, you know, we won the Dutch Olympias of Kizomba. So I was like, it wasn't about me, it was about the style.
But that's the thing, like that, to go back to what I was saying before, like there isn't really, when it comes to dancing, I don't think there's really a rule for when you have to start or how you have to start or anything. You just do it, like, and you figure it out. Like there's not, like there are very few people that I can say have the exact same. I don't know anyone, to be honest. Like everyone has their different, like, well, I started like this because of this, like everyone has their different reasons and their different ways, like their different paths to where they are now. Like I don't know a single artist that have the same story.
No,
you know.
that that is also why I want to do this like interview, because I feel like so many people have a unique story, and
Exactly.
you're, you know, one of them that just for me became like, oh, she's from Sweden. Like it took me a while to understand like who you
Yeah.
were in the scene. But I also want to come into that because suddenly you
Mm,
start to get more followers, you started to be more known. Was
yeah.
that the period when you became a partner with Enna for a while, or how
Uh,
did that change happen?
Honestly, it was, I mean, obviously, I got a name, like more of a known name, when we got together, like as the community. But when it came to my social media and stuff like that, like I was nobody. Like, so, and we only danced for a few months. We didn't even dance for that long, to be honest, for that to have been that big of an impact, if that makes sense. But it was actually after we had stopped dancing together. I believe it was about a year or so, a year and a half even after that, when I started to notice that the things that I was putting out, like I was still dancing. Like it wasn't like, oh, I started with Anna and I finished when
No.
we split up, but I was already dancing before then, you know. Like I said, I was dancing with Christopher before then, and we got this Stockholm Midnight video that I hate. But anyway, it got a lot of views on YouTube. Has like 5 million views that I don't want to acknowledge, but anyway, it's part of the journey. Part of the journey. And and then you know, when I started dancing with Anna, of course, like that, I think the only change I can say, like from what I really noticed, was that people started seeing me as this kizombera. And I
Mm,
myself, I was like, what are you talking about? I'm a salsera. Like, but that was like when the change really happened in a professional way, because before then I won this Swedish championship in bachata as well with Alberto here. I was competing in salsa and got like third place. Like I was already doing a little bit of everything. So when I started Kizomba with Christopher, that was like another thing to add to the list. It wasn't like, oh, I'm gonna go full on and be a Kizomba artist. Like it was
mm,
never that for me. And that's why I say it was kind of like Kizomba found me. It wasn't I found Kizomba and I was like, okay, let's do this. In that sense of like, this is my only passion. Because I just love expression of all sorts, and I wouldn't give one up for the other. I wouldn't be able to stop dancing salsa and only dance kizomba for me, for example,
mm.
or vice versa, because they both mean a lot to me. And even bachata, I don't dance a lot of bachata nowadays, but it's still something like I enjoy expression and connection in all forms.
Yeah.
Um, and that's what I was going to say before on like you being in the competition, or both you and Mally and you and Michelle, like it's just about your expression. Like it's what you feel and what you can bring to whatever step. Well, who cares about the step that you're doing? If you can be yourself when you do it, then that's like you are rocking that stage, like, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah, for
So I
sure.
think that's and I think we as a community should really focus more on that, than the style and this and that. And we need labels on everything nowadays, and there's like
Yeah.
politics and everything, and it's
Yeah.
about you, you know. It's like, do whatever you feel.
Because that was also my next question for you. Like when
Mm.
you started to feel like, oh, you know, like you got this branded name like Snow White, and people started to know you know, for this name too. Was there like a change within you that happened? Like, oh, so some things that I did before I cannot do anymore, or some things that I didn't do before I have to do now? Did you see
Um,
something within yourself in that change?
yeah, that's a very good question. I do feel, like I said, it wasn't like I had a big social media following at the time when I was with Anna. People started noticing, like accepting me, that I was in that scene now as an artist. Um, but it took some time for me to be like, okay, all right, I'm a kizomba artist. And I think it was after some time after we split up where I was like, no, you know what? Like I am passionate about this and I'm going to do something with it. And I enjoyed teaching it, and people, obviously the response I got for the appreciation of it, and me finding like, oh, it's not just because I was partnered with Anna, but people actually find me talented in this, or that I have something to bring. Because I think to be completely like, transparent, I think I was a bit insecure at the time as well, because I did feel like I just got this golden ticket to be a Kizomba artist. So I wasn't like, well, I'm the shit. I was very, and not very insecure, but I had some insecurities about like, oh, like I love dancing, and if I can bring something to this, that's amazing. But maybe I'm not anybody without Anna at the time. Um, and so it took me a little while before I was, a little while, and at the same time no time, like, but I was just like, okay, I'm gonna continue. It don't matter how slow it goes, just as long as I don't stop. That was like my mentality at the time. And so I just continued, and it kind of grew on me. And then when the response was very positive, on like, wow, but we love your style, you have your own style in this, and like you inspire me. And like when I felt that, that's when I started to like, okay, like that's also, it grew together parallel with my passion, also with my confidence, and me feeling and growing into this artist that I feel like I am today. By honestly, I'm very, very humbled by, still, like I'm just as humbled today as I was then, to the appreciation that I get. And because if it wasn't for all of the people out there, I wouldn't be able to do what I do and be who I am, and share and give back to the community, but also share all of those experiences that has been amazing over the years. And yeah, it's just, I've developed so much as a dancer. Like that's why I can't stand looking at that stock of it. Like I've developed so much as a dancer, which I'm proud to be able to say, that like I can look back and be like, oh, but now I'm this, and I got myself here. It wasn't because of somebody else, really. I'm super appreciative to all of the experiences I've had. I'm appreciative of Anna, to begin with, giving me that chance. I'm appreciative to all the other artists I've, traveled with, collaborated with, danced with. But at the end of the day, you have yourself to turn to and be like, okay, but people appreciate my style of what I add to the people I dance with.
Yeah.
So that meant a lot to me. And with my social media growing, and it was really fast. Like it was almost not overnight, but it was really, really quick. It was over like 6 months when it was like 10,000 followers and 20,000 followers. And then after, it's been like a bit slower, but it was really, really quick, to be honest with you. And then I've just, had an amazing opportunity to have, I guess, appreciated pedagogy in my teaching. So I've been booked alone, and also had, amazing opportunities to work with great artists, such as Asdeen, Curtis, Audie,
Ronnie, a lot of
like many. I would probably forget some, so I'm not gonna try to mention all of them, but just and that's amazing. So
yeah, for sure. And then what would you say, like, maybe you touched a little bit on like you being humble through all this, but what would you say then be something that you have been consistent with since you started dancing that haven't changed at all? Something with you as a person or as a dancer, like something that you value very high that has been consistently followed? Through.
I think, oh, it's so hard. Every time we talk about, even this is like making me humble, because I'm like, I don't want to talk about myself as a, like, but I would say, like, just being very, very appreciative of everybody around me that show like that. Like, if I can give anything to you that is of value, that means so much to me. So I think just really, really appreciating whatever I can give or offer to people. And like, if it's something that you said, like, if it's something that has never changed, is that humbleness. And like, I've never taken that for granted. I always, to be honest with you, just to go off other people's reaction to me, is that like, oh, like, we thought that you were going to be like this, but you're so like nice and connected with us, and like, you're so humble, and like, But in the video, you look like you could be a bitch. But when we talk to you or when we go to your class, it's like the opposite, you know. And I do think that that is something I've always kept with me, because I would never see myself as someone higher or someone that more important than anyone else in the room, no matter what position I have, no matter if I have a class of 100 people or a class of 5, like or 1. Like I always see, like, what can I, you know, give you? Because it's about you. It's not about me, you know. At the end of the day, that's really what I think, and something I have consistently had with me. Like the purpose for me is everything. So I would say that is a key word for me in everything I do in life, is like, what is the purpose of this? What is the purpose of me doing this? What is the purpose of me being here? And that's, you know, led to me walking away from situations, and it's also led me to make decisions about what I want to do, because I always go back to what is my purpose. And a purpose I've always had with me is that, okay, well, I'm really passionate about teaching, and I'm really passionate about giving back. So yeah, that would be my key word, is purpose.
Yeah. And so do you think that the biggest misconception about, because every teacher, like, there would always be like a first view of somebody that maybe don't match with a person per se. Do you think that what you just said about like you being you know, thinking you're above others, do you think that that is the most common misconception about you as an artist, as a person?
Oh, for sure, that's probably the most common thing. I think it's also the way I look, just people thinking that you're good looking and you're dressed a certain way, or, you know, just all these, you know, fördomar, whatever that's called.
Yeah, like
and like prejudgments that
yeah.
people do, just because you have a specific look, or you dance with that artist, so you must be, because that artist is, I don't know, but like, it's, people make that misconception. And I think just as humans in general, we have this like hierarchy mindset a lot of the time. So you think of as an artist as like this untouchable, you know, like something that, blah, 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 how do I get there? And it's really healthy for us in some ways, because it, you know, you create an idol, you know, for yourself to strive by, and like someone you can take inspiration from. But myself, you know, I'm still like, after all of these years, when people come up to me like, oh, can I take a picture with you? And I'm like, you know, like, yeah, let me take a picture of you. You know, I'm like, you know, like, of course I want to take a picture, but I'm like, why would you want to take a picture with me in some sense? Because I'm really honored and to that you would want that. But I'm still like, in my head, I'm like, whoa, you know, like, I don't even think about the impact that I have on people sometimes, because I'm always just not reminding myself, but it's just so natural to me to always be on the same level. I don't see myself as better or worse either. I'm just being me. I don't know how to
like,
but yeah.
I think that,
but
you
definitely
know,
misconception, I think, for sure. That's
yeah. And I wonder also, like, I've been thinking a lot about this, you know, how as like women in the scene, what kind of misconception people have in general of women in the scene. And I remember a particular moment with you, actually, when we were both in Germany, in Kassel, in the Christmas Gala festival.
Yes.
And we were sitting eating, like, you know, artists, guests, mixed. And there was a man that came up to you, and he said something like, oh, I didn't think you could eat that much. And I was just so shocked, because first of all, nobody said anything to anyone else about how much we were eating. And I think you and me were equally eating and the same plate of like a huge meal, because we were both super hungry. And on the festivals, you have no time to eat. So you kind of like have to take every chance to eat massively. But I was just like, you know, that was when I thought like, oh, this, and somebody would never say that to a man in the scene, you know, that this is something that somebody felt entitled to point out, like, you actually eat this much.
No, for sure. That's actually, I mean, it's a different topic, but it's definitely something I have in general as a woman, in the scene or not. But I think in the scene, it's just, since we have these like man and women roles a lot more just because of the dance itself. And obviously there are a lot of struggles as a woman in this community, both business-wise and physically, you know, practically everything. So it's definitely not for everybody, or it's a struggle. But when it comes to that topic, like, you know, I've always been a tiny person, and it's not because I'm starving myself or working out hard, or, you know, it's actually quite the opposite. Like, I always get questions like, how do you train your body? How do you do, you know? And I'm like, I'm just, you know, I sit on my couch, I eat chips. Like, which, you know, I love to move. I've never been like this freak, or, you know, putting my, you know, diet tree in like a specific way and in a way. And I've always had that really, you know, weird thought of like, especially now, I'm not as tiny now as I was a few years ago, but people would always comment on my weight.
Yeah.
And like, oh, do you eat that much? Or you blah, blah, blah? Or like, people would come up to me and be like, are you okay? Like, do you eat enough? Or blah, blah. And like, I would understand if it was someone I knew, or, you know, if I did look anorectic or something, like if it was really like, oh, you look like you need to be put in hospital. Like, but I've never looked like that. Not that it should matter, but I haven't looked like I have a health problem, I would at least say. And then to have the audacity to still come up and just speak like that to strangers, like you wouldn't do that to someone being overweight. You wouldn't come up and be like, you look a little fat, like, are you okay? Like, you wouldn't say that. So
No.
it was something I was actually struggling with a few years ago, that I was like, why do people feel like it's okay to come up and comment on my weight?
Yeah.
So yeah, for sure. I don't know if it's a woman-man thing, but it was definitely something I was struggling with. It don't happen to me as often now. It does happen still, because I'm a person that eats a lot, and I don't know, my metabolism just works that way. I don't know. But I definitely, I would say other judgments that people do, or that people feel like they have the audacity to just assume, is that you as a woman sleep around with artists or guys in general in the scene to get where you are. And me as an artist, I've always, like, both people who are in the community or who are not in the community just assume that I sleep with all the guys that I work with. And that to me is like, why would I have to do that to be an established artist? Like, for me, that is the worst man versus woman problem, because you would never put that on a man. You would never be like, oh, you just slept with a lot of women to get where you are. But when you're a woman and you're successful in this community, it's kind of like, oh, but you probably slept around to get where you are. And I'm like, no. It's so,
you know,
it's so frustrating.
So frustrating. And I feel like almost like sometimes the dancing in general can be like so liberating, because we're getting out of these norms of, you know, you shouldn't touch another person if you're in a relationship or whatever. Sometimes the dancing is like super healing and therapeutic. And then sometimes it's just completely like, you take all the society norms and you just like concentrate them and like boil them down, and whatever is like the most stereotypical things are like left in our community. And you know, so
they're so toxic. Like, it's like it's worse than the coronavirus. Like, it just spreads, like it's crazy. It's like, it just, because it's so instantly. And you know, and I check myself if it's something like, to just go back a little bit on what you said, like what I've always kept with me throughout all of these years is that I've never changed my mind about what women are or should be in this community for myself. You know, like, of course there are people that are going to want to have sex together, and there are people who like that kind of, you know, festival hook up kind of thing. There's always going to be that, no matter what kind of festival you'll be at. You'd probably be at a festival for blueberries and it'd be the same, you know. And of course there's the physical touch of things, but for me, like, it was a shock. I will tell you a true story. when I started traveling with dancing, which was, I had already been dancing for a few years. Because I think it was because I started pretty early still, and it was older people in the scene. And I was the baby in the scene at the time. Like I was only 18 and was like a little pollito. And when I started dancing, it was so much about the dancing. Like it was not about sex. Like that didn't exist for me. Like the drinking and sex, and that didn't even exist in my reality, because I was so passionate about the dancing that when people assume that, I would just be like, "You're crazy!" Like, so I was always just like, I didn't even understand why they were. But then when I started traveling, that was my first like experience, even to understand and be in the know of that some people do that. Like some people do sleep around, and some people do hook up just for the sake of it. And I was like, people really do that? Like I was so, it sounds so silly, and people don't believe me when I say that, but honestly, it was my experience when I traveled as an artist, and you know, both with artists around me and also people in the party and people that would approach me in that sense. I would just be like,
are you for real?
Are you for real? Like you're here for that? Like, or not necessarily that you're here for that, but you actually think that's appropriate to suggest, like, or like to do, or people do all of these things. Like it was like a whole new world to me that was like, whoa, okay, I haven't seen this side. But for me, because I think my own values have always been so strong, and it's not because it's wrong to sleep around or anything. You do whatever you want. But for me personally, it's just been really important because my passion is for the dance. And I was going through a really, really hard time when I started dancing, actually. That's a long story, but I was, at the time I was without a home. I didn't have anywhere to live. And I was going through a really, really rough time, in life, and dance was something that really saved me. So, for me, it's always, and it will always be so precious that I wouldn't want to mix it up with something else.
You don't want to risk it.
If I really fell like, you know, in love with somebody that danced, I wouldn't maybe stop myself, but it's always been kind of something holding me back because I always think about my purpose. Like I said, like, what's the purpose? Like, would I just hook up with this person just for the sake of it? No, it's not worth risking all of this love and like commitment I'd have to this. I don't want this. This is my free zone. Like, this is my free space. I want to feel, like you said, liberated, to be able to be there and feel safe and feel like, at least to the extent that we can, you know, not feel judged, because it's all, or judged, or misconceptions and stuff like this, because it's already so much about that. So for me personally, I've always been really careful with these things. And then to still be approached like that is so tiring. Like, oh, but yeah, you probably just slept with everybody. And I'm like, listen, like, not that it would matter, but I'm actually out here not doing that. And you still think that of me. So I'm like, you know, it's so annoying. It's so annoying.
Yeah, definitely some struggles. Definitely. And I know we kind of never got really involved in it, in that, because we came as a crew. So it was easier for us when we entered the scene because we were always a group, you know, like people approached us almost like a unit. So of course, you know, you meet these people, but I as you say, like I was very lucky in that sense that I always had a group with me. I wherever I looked, I had somebody that could save me. So
yeah, for sure. I think that's that, to go back to again, like, it does matter how, like, everyone has their different experience in this. And you know, to go on the other side of the coin, I do feel like there's a lot of things that I'm blessed by not experiencing as well, because I am who I am today in the scene. Because, you know, I hear a lot of stories, both from my friends and students and, you know, stuff like this. I've had a topic about that on my Instagram a few months ago on the topic of, like, the sexism and how there was, like, this joke posted on social media that I was really offended by, that said, like, oh, like, the middle part, it was like a diagram, and, like, the main reason for Kizomba is sex. it said. And I was so upset by this meme. And like this was just shared all over the Kizomba community, like it was a funny joke. And I was just, anyway, so I brought it up on my Instagram, and I like the response I got was like overwhelming, you know, from the women that had experienced this and they had experienced that and blah blah blah. Like, because I asked them, like, what is going on? Like, we have to open up these like these, you know, hush hush moments of not talking about this. And like, it's not okay that jokes like this are spread, because it's only making us feel even more unsafe than it already is. Like, this is not working towards the right direction. And at the time, so what I was going to say is, when I read all of this, and I you know, even friends as well, I have just felt like, whoa, I don't experience this. Because, and I think it really is because, you know, I'm this artist. So when I go to festivals, for example, it's kind of like I'm not untouchable, but it's like all the games wouldn't work on me. Like I'm not as oblivious. They wouldn't assume that I would be as oblivious, like these guys that would take advantage of certain situations and stuff like that. There are bad people in every community, or people that would take advantage of situations. And I think being an artist, you kind of like get away from that a lot more, although there's like really toxic stuff in the artist clique as well. But towards like the general, like that, and the parties and stuff like that, I think there's a lot of things that I'm still oblivious to are happening, because I'm like, no, but no one does that to me. Everyone's really respectful to me. No one's trying to get with me. No one asks to come to my room, like blah, blah, blah. You know, that was in the beginning when I danced, but nowadays that never happens. Like, it's super, super rare. And
that is interesting in itself, like, and how we can somehow work towards like more women also not being artists feel that way. And like, this is not, of course, only what we can work on as women, but of course, like, how do we talk with the men about this? Like, okay, the same respect you have for me as an artist, because I completely agree with you. Like, it's not a lot of people that would ever come up to me and suggest something at all. But you know, you're I don't know, privileged in that way that you can get off the dance floor and into another section sometimes and just get a break from the dance floor. I don't know what it is, but it's definitely a conversation that would be interesting to have with the men.
Yeah, for sure. And that's, you know, like you said, like, to have that weird privilege just because you have a certain entitled, like, it's like a title in the scene. And that to me is also that I'm trying to eliminate, you know, with we were going to get into that later, but like this program of mine that I'm doing is something, for the ones who don't know, who are watching this, is an online program that I created to eliminate the connection, the disconnection between the instructors and the students, because I think it's not just about the physical sense of like, oh, learning steps and that, but to actually have this communication and to understand that I, just as any other woman in the world, in the scene and in the world, deserves the same respect as, like, it's equally, like, don't just treat a woman with respect just because the way she looks or who she is in a context of something, but that everyone deserves the exact same respect. And this online program, we obviously don't have this topic in focus, but I do have had a lot of the girls in my program that have struggled with things like this, and not just feeling like they're being taken advantage of, but to that affects their self-confidence. Because like I said, kind of like going back to like, oh, you're just probably dancing because you want sex. And it's like, no, I want to feel nice, I want to feel sexy, I want to be able to feel feminine and express myself without being worried about you putting that stamp on me or thinking that I would want to get with you. And I think that is a really important topic that I notice myself in the online program that I do, where I coach people as well. It's not just online classes. Is that there is that is a topic that just reoccurs all the time of these feelings. Obviously there are men that can experience similar feelings about self-confidence and being expressive and stuff like that, but in the women, I've just really seen how big of an impact that has had on them as dancers and
Yeah.
to feel comfortable with themselves. Yeah, but I definitely think, yeah, that's why, I think it's amazing that you as a woman do this as well in this community, because I mean, it's not just Kizomba, I know, but just in general to like really acknowledge that we're women that work hard and the dance scene in general, and that it's so important to highlight and be like, whoa, look, she's doing this, it's awesome,
Yeah, for sure, for sure. And I've some questions from the Facebook people that wanted to talk with you as well with this. We could talk about this for hours and hours. I think we would have to need like a weekend event about these things. So think about that so we can plan that for the future.
Yeah, no,
So I want to take it a little bit as well, like outside of before we get into the questions from Facebook, just a little bit about Teresa Jimenez as the person. Do you have any like certain belief system as a person, or like a quote that you live out of or through in your life that kind of, you talked a little bit about it, like you always live from a purpose. Do you have like a certain belief system that you always refer to?
a belief system. I mean, I think I in most situations in my life in general, I would say I always go back to my keyword, which is purpose. But also kind of what I mentioned before, and that's like, it doesn't matter how long it takes as long as you don't stop. It's something I really, really go by since I was a kid, like really. Learning violin is not easy. And it really, like, the patience and to like just have the consistency of not stopping, and it's the same for dancing, and just to have that is the process and the journey itself. And yeah, to just not stop. But it doesn't matter what pace you're going, but don't stop. I would say
Don't
that
stop.
would be
And I mean, like, you've been traveling like basically all over the world, and you seem like a person that would be easily jump on like the next challenge. What's the next? Have you ever, like, what would be your favorite destination that you've been to so far?
country, you mean?
Yeah, country, city,
Oh. Oof, that's such a hard question. Um,
or at least one of them, one that pops up.
oof, oof, so hard. Uh, I wanted, like, on the top of my head, just because it was like my first time in Asia, I think South Korea. But I've been to so many amazing places. It's hard to just choose one like that. But yeah, I think I'll go with South Korea just for now.
For
Anyway,
now.
for
And
now, I might change. I might change my mind. But yeah,
and
yeah, for sure.
South Korea, but and then like I would also want to know, have you ever thought about living in another country? Because you've been traveling a lot, but you always came back to Sweden, or have you been living in other countries as well?
Yeah, this is actually a topic that has been very currently in my head, because I haven't lived anywhere else than in Stockholm, Sweden. And something that, when I started dancing, it was that I wanted to just get out and see everything. And I was like, fuck Sweden. No, not like fuck Sweden, but like I just wanted to out. Like I just wanted to get away. Um, but actually what turned to happen, to be honest with you, is also I've appreciated Sweden and Stockholm, like where I live and my house and my family, a lot more because I'm traveling so much. So there's a lot of things um, that, like, where I've traveled to, that I've just been so appreciative of being in Sweden, because we really do have such a high quality of life here, as you know. And so it's actually turned a little bit to the opposite. Like, oh, I just love being here. I love coming home and feeling like, okay, I'm at home. Like I'm in my nest in a sense. But I have lately wanted the experience to live somewhere else. And I've been thinking about Spain or Holland, where you are right now. So I might get there. But yeah, and it's because, and the purpose of that, to go back to my purpose, have been, it would be easier for me to travel. It would be a great experience. Spain, like I'm half Cuban, I would, be more comfortable and just get into like speaking Spanish on a daily in a different sense than here in Sweden. Holland, I have my best friend lives there. Like there's a great Kizomba scene. It's similar to Sweden. It's very diverse. Like I love culture, and that's the only thing that I'm missing here in Sweden, because we're not that many. Not that we don't have culture, but it's not as diverse. And I feel like an alien a lot of the time here in Sweden. Although I love it, it's like I do feel kind of weird here sometimes. I'm like, I think I'm from a different planet,
Yeah.
but I'm Swedish. So I've thought about it, and it's been working slowly in my brain. Like, oh, I was looking at moving to Barcelona or Holland. My best friend is in The Hague. But then Corona happened. So honestly, that's kind of what stopped it. And now I'm like, oh, I don't know. I want to go somewhere, but I don't know if I'm going, because what if this and that, nowadays you don't even know.
Yeah,
so,
for sure.
And the festivals as well, like it would just be easier for me to travel if I lived in Holland, for example. It's like in the middle of Europe, than to travel minimum 2 hours every time I travel here from Sweden. That's a lot of travel time all the time.
And a lot of flights, like definitely that's something that I know now when I live here, like you can take a train to wherever, like just to have that spontaneous lifestyle is a little bit easier when you can take a train to Paris or London or wherever you want within a couple of hours.
Exactly. And that we don't have that in Sweden. Like we're such a big, awkward country on the wrong side of the world.
Very north, very offside.
Too offside. Yeah. At least for the dance scene, so.
Yeah, for sure. Like there's a lot of pros and cons. I think that's a continuous, process.
Sure.
So I'm gonna read out some of the questions. One was from Malcolm, which was about the places and if there was a place where you could see yourself live or go back to. Okay. Then I have another question. Do you think that urban kiss is better dancing without closing your eyes?
Oh, that's a really good question. Or like it's an interesting question. I've never had that question before. It is better to have your eyes open, I would say. Just because it depends though. When someone says urban kiss as like in this example, I'm thinking about an open position dancing like that. But urban kiss has a closed position as well. It's not that you never dance close. Yeah. So I would say when you're connected with your chest, you have the kind of invitation to be able to close your eyes. If you're standing apart from each other, I wouldn't suggest it, just because you need to like orientate yourself in a little different manner to keep like your frame in check, which is harder to do with closed eyes standing far away from somebody. Yeah. But if you're standing close and connected with the chest, I think that you are more than welcome, at least to close your eyes if you want to.
Yeah, and that's a good answer.
Interesting question.
Yes.
I like that.
Okay, here's a long one. Let me just see if I can boil this down to one. Wow, okay, I'm gonna read it and see if you can manage to find a question in this. Okay. I would want to know 5 critical points or 5 stages in her development from beginner to where she is today. Like when I realized I don't have to, or it made me dance more, or it could be stuff that she learned in a workshop, private lesson, or in an experience from dancing at a certain festival that changed or developed how she dances. That was the half of the question.
Wow.
We're gonna stop there.
Oh, it was more?
There was more. It was, for examples, like first I danced a lot on my toes, or I danced heavy on my feet. I didn't like tricks so much. I only wanted to do tricks. I never understood what the leaders wanted when they did, etc., etc. I think the question is
examples of what was like milestones.
critical milestones. Yes, we're gonna go with that.
That's how I understand it. Like milestones that changed my dancing.
Yes.
Is that the question?
I think let's just go for that.
Let's go with it. I would. It's a very fair and good question. It's hard though. I would say, like, if we're just going to be technical in Kizomba, I think your balance, like keeping your own balance. Um, uh, a milestone, I don't know if I would call it a milestone, but a point in that for me was to unlock my knees, but still be straight. And when I say that, it's because then I'm free to move my hips, but I'm still straightening out my legs in a position. Every time I go through this in my challenge program, but like the first thing that moves when you walk is not your feet, but it's actually your knee that moves first, and then you place out your foot. So if you unlock your knee, you are free to move your hip, and you're also free to, when you do take your step, you straighten out your leg. Does this make sense?
I'm very impressed about how controlled your fingers are. Like that is a skill itself.
But if that makes sense. So I think like really understanding that into my body, because it's one thing understanding it in theory, but to really feel that in your body. So that was a milestone because it made me a lot more flexible in my dancing, to be able to use my lady styling in moments of, you know, musicality, when I wanted to just be general moving. Like something that everyone like that dance with me or make a video with me or whatever, or people that have just seen me, is that I never stop moving my body. So I always move in Kizomba, which not all people do, because they kind of like, oh, they walk and then they make a hip, for example. But I try, but my natural feeling when I dance is that I'm always moving my hips. I'm always moving something in my body. But to keep my frame static, which was going to be my next point, is to keep your frame static and not what I mean by that is that we have this misconception. A lot in classes, they're like, oh, put tension, you have to put tension. And I'm like, I hate that word, because it's not about being tensed. You're not tensing, you're not pushing the other person, you're being static. You're just holding your position. So if something comes towards you, you now keep your frame static, but you don't push back. You don't have this like muscle struggle. And that was also something I realized, because when I started dancing, I was very much like tensed, because everyone was telling me that, well, you should just put more tension. And so I'm like, okay, I'll just push you then. But something, you know, I like really found, and also, you know, what I've heard throughout the years, I'm just really going back to my beginner years now, is that, you know, I'm such a light follow, because like I have a very soft frame, but it's static. So it means I'm not like tensing, because you feel if someone is tensed and static. But if you're relaxed and static, it's a different ballgame. Like you will then, like, you can just be touched with a finger and you will feel that you want to move back, because you're soft, but you're so responsive that you will feel each and every movement a lot easier.
Yeah.
And you will be a lighter follower. Those are two examples. I think
that's great. Like, you don't have to do 5. I think that those are great.
5, Jesus.
Yeah, like sign up for class. That's what I'm saying. If you want all the tips.
My online program, whoever asked this, I have 8 challenges for you to improve all of these steps, and specific technique and specific challenges for you to find your passion and become a better dancer.
And we're going to link everything in the description below, so nobody can miss this opportunity. Yes. So I also wanted to like ask you, what do you see in the future, not only for yourself, but what do you kind of want to create in the future for the scene that you're in?
Right. I mean, it's interesting times that we live in right now, for sure. So it's hard to say. Obviously, if I could choose myself and just be, the ruler of the world, I would love it if we could just go back to normal. And, I had this new secret partnership that was just on its, start, and we had prepared a show and bookings for all of the years. I was so excited about that for this year. And then everything just got turned upside down. I did start this online program that I'm doing already, BC, as I call it, before Corona.
Yes.
But so I'm very passionate about that. It was meant to be, like that I mentioned before, something to eliminate the disconnection between us as instructors and the students, and to coach people both mentally and with dancing, to keep yourself motivated and be able to achieve your goal in a limited, like in a shorter space of time. That was meant to be a side thing to begin with, and now it's turned into something like, okay, now it's really important that I give this to people, because we're all out here and we can't dance. So now more than ever, we all need this program, honestly, that I'm doing, is that because it's for each and every one, and it's tailored for each and every person. So just explain a little bit. It's an 8-week program, and I tailor depending on what your goals are and that you're striving for, and what obstacles you're experiencing in your dancing. I tailor a program laid out for 8 weeks for that student. So you have one challenge a week. Every Friday you receive your challenge. It goes from Friday to Friday every week. And you receive a personal goal challenge, as I call it, every Friday, with a video from me, with the technique explained, and then a challenge explained, for you to be able to use the technique that I'm explaining in a structure of experimenting with your own dancing. So, and like I said, based on someone's obstacles and goal plan. Then every they send in a 1-minute video of themselves dancing this challenge to me privately. And then every Tuesday, they receive a personal feedback via video from me that I send to them privately. So you get a personal feedback on the challenge that you've done, me going over, try and do this instead. I can see that you're doing this with your body, specific techniques that would suit you for the obstacle that you're experiencing, or that I can see that you're experiencing in that challenge of the week, and etc. So or just general tips and tricks in general, like feedback to you personally. And then I want all my students, I always say, apply the feedback as soon as you get the video, as fast as possible, so you keep training with having the feedback. And then another 2 days later, we have like an evaluation call, like a review call, as always, where we have a review of the whole week of what they experienced in the last 6 days with their dancing. What was the biggest obstacle that they experienced? What was the biggest achievement? If they have potential questions about my feedback that they didn't understand, if they want me to get up and show them, I do that. It's over video call, so something that you schedule for every week, so it's like no stress. Yeah, so it's from back to back, and it's intense. So every time you have a new Friday, you have a new challenge, new technique, new feedback, new review call again. So it's not like you just continue on the same theme, but it's like it's themed based for each and every week. So that's what I'm offering. And like I said, it's also about having these deadlines to have that self-discipline, and also me coaching you through it, because you're not alone. A lot of times we buy online classes, like we buy 12 online classes, and it's great that there are online classes out there. I'm not saying that, but you don't have anyone to motivate you to actually do them. They're just collecting dust on a shelf somewhere, a lot of the time. And so I wanted to create that motivational coaching and feedback in this program, as it is also challenges for you to develop yourself as a dancer instead of just copying what I'm doing. To actually find yourself, find your own self-confidence, expression, like, I mean, for the women, like your femininity, like feeling sexy, feeling like you don't need a man. No, I'm just kidding. But that, like, that you really feel comfortable in your own dancing, because especially women, like I really highly recommend this for women, especially just because we tend to, as a community, have the guys as this like comfort blanket, you know? It's like a little snuttefilt, where it's like, oh, like it just, like he just leads me and I just go wherever. And as soon as they, you know, are being let go of, both the salsa, bachata, kizomba, doesn't matter, they freak out. You know, it's like, what do I do now? I don't know what do. I dance even? No, it's him dancing with me. It's not me dancing. And they freak out. So that's even more like, it's really been proven. You don't even have to take my word for it. Just go on my Instagram. You can check each and every clip of some of the students that I have that have, with their own words, explaining their experience in this program.
That's really, really nice. And where can people find this program? Is it easiest on Facebook, websites?
Both Facebook and Instagram. It's on my website as well, Ready Set Kiz. It's in my bio on Instagram, where you can book a call with me and we go over all of the obstacles and goals that you want to achieve and how we get there together over the space of 8 weeks. You can find it on Facebook as well. There's links everywhere. If you just go on any of my profiles, you will find all the information needed to sign up and start.
That's
and
so
I actually
nice.
have a start this Friday, which is probably going to be too late for this podcast to get out.
Probably, yes.
The 29th, yeah, the 29th of May. Another start. I was supposed to do 2 starts because there was a huge interest. So I had 1 start last week, and now I'm doing another start this week. But in about 2 to 3 weeks, I'm gonna do yet another one. So if you're watching this, don't hesitate to book a call anyway, and we'll get you started.
That's so nice. And you know, I feel like we have still so much we can talk about, but I'm just gonna have to book in for another interview further down the road.
Book a review call. It's for
Yes.
free.
Yes. So, you know, before I let you go, I just wanted to open up for you to, is there anything else you want to say to the people out there before we end this call for Teresa Jimenez?
You're so cute. No, I mean, oh, there's an ambulance coming now. I mean, it's something to say. I would just say, like, really just hang in there. Like, don't lose your passion about this dancing. Like, don't forget how much passion and time that you have put into wherever you are with your dancing right now. No matter what style you're dancing, no matter how long or intense or whatever, just don't forget that feeling it made you feel in these times of Corona and everything, because I really, really think that that's essential to really remind yourself of, because we're going to get forward and we're all in this together, but just don't forget like that.
Oh no, the internet broke. No. Hello. Do you hear me now? Oh my gosh, the internet broke.
Yeah, I hear you. Oh, you didn't hear me. I was like, it's cool. I heard you. It's okay. Just cut it there.
Yeah. No, I don't even know where it cut it, but it was something like hang in there.
Yeah, just
basically.
Hang in there. We're all in this together. Don't forget that you're passionate about dancing, no matter what style you're dancing. Regardless, just remember what it made you feel, so you don't like lose that feeling. And also you're dancing, like keep on dancing, even if, no matter if you dance couple dance or solo dance, like just keep practicing your passion, because like we need to remind ourselves all the time as well in times like this, and we're going to get out of it, but we need to remind ourselves and each other about why, the purpose. Again, we need to remember why we're doing it and what it makes us feel. So that is something I would just tell everyone to, like, don't lose that connection with yourself and why you want to dance.
That is a perfect, wow, what an ending. Thank you so much for taking your time out and talking with this podcast. I'm so happy and I can't wait to see what the future holds for you and follow your journey. Yeah, so thank you so much.
I'm so happy every time I see you, Mali. I'm like, yes, Sweden. So yeah, and I think, like I said, it's awesome that you've done this live thing, especially in these times. So I think it's amazing what you do, and just don't stop.
No,
we're slow.
We're gonna get through this. Thank you so much, and take care. Thank you. Bye bye.